Mr. Harrison Price from the Historic Wall Center. We are joined now by former Canucks assistant general manager Laurence Gilman, a former NHL executive with the Leafs, Coyotes, and Jets. And that Jets-Coyotes part, we're going to get to it later because Canucks are into Utah for the first time. Blake.
Same team, technically.
How you doing?
I'm good. I was once the GM of the Utah Grizzlies, the American Hockey League.
Oh, really?
During my Phoenix Coyotes days, yes. They were our American League affiliate. We were one of the worst teams in the American Hockey League at the time.
And they played where? What was the arena they played out of?
I can't recall the name of the arena. It was an arena built for the Olympic Games in 2002. It was on the outskirts.
Yeah, on the outskirts.
It was a great rink. Great rink.
Yeah.
We didn't have such a great organization at the time.
No. Did you get the sense then that Salt Lake could one day be an NHL market?
No, I did not. And I think that Salt Lake has evolved. We're talking over 20 years ago now. I think Salt Lake has evolved immensely, and those that I know that have been there recently have said it's a different town. It's a different.
I was there twice in the summer, Lawrence, for MLS, and I quite liked it. I thought it was great. So it doesn't surprise me that they're
honestly visually, and I realize it's a lake, not an ocean. It's the city that has most reminded me of Vancouver in terms of buffered by mountains, snow-capped mountains, a big body of water nearby. So for those who don't know, Lawrence started with the original Winnipeg Jets, and you upped and moved down to the desert with the Coyotes when I got to imagine there was a lot of optimism back then, Lawrence, about being in this new market. I just want to get your take on everything that's transpired here with this franchise now landing in the Utah capital.
Well, people would go after Gary Bettman for the way he, vigorously defended the Phoenix market and didn't understand why. I can tell you that Phoenix is a great hockey market. When we first got there in '96, the Coyotes had 10,000 season ticket holders. In every single market, there are three components that make up a good franchise. One is obviously the market, two is the building, and three is ownership. And, obviously Phoenix is a great market, but they began their career there playing as a tenant in a building run by Jerry Colangelo and the Phoenix Suns in America West Arena, where you had 4,300 obstructed seats and virtually no revenue to generate from it. They hatched a plan to build a new arena, which was supposed to be in an old dilapidated mall at the base of Scottsdale near the intersection with Tempe called Los Arcos. And two votes occurred to approve putting the arena there, but in the second vote, the Scottsdale City Council killed it, which ultimately led to the Coyotes moving out to Glendale, Arizona, which was incredibly far from where the fan base was. And that occurred when the team was beginning in its cycle to cycle down. And it's a tragic event because I really believe had they built that building in South Scottsdale, it would be a different story. But that being said, I don't think I'm telling tales out of school, but if you look at the history of the ownership of the Phoenix Coyotes, it was their biggest problem. You either had you had a cast of characters that were either underfinanced, didn't get along, or just were plain inept. And that's a recipe for a disaster. And no matter how good a market can be or how good the market is, it can't overcome those elements. If you have a bad building and you don't have solid ownership, then your franchise is destined to fail, which is too bad.
Yeah. What do you make of this Utah owner, and what do you make of the team now in Salt Lake? You think it's going to be a good go there?
Well, it seems like they're having the same honeymoon in Utah that the Winnipeg Jets had when they went back after the Atlanta Thrashers were sold. By all accounts, Ryan Smith and his wife seem to be tremendous owners. The words, the intel I get from people who represent players that are there, they absolutely love it. They're being treated incredibly well. It's a first-class operation. They brought in Chris Armstrong, respected golf executive, agent, and supposedly they are clearly doing things the right way. And from what I can tell to this point in time, they've been a model franchise. Unfortunately, from the hockey side, they've had some devastating injuries, particularly on their blue line, that's impacted their fortunes. But I think this is a pretty good success story for the National Hockey League.
The NBA is
and a franchise to watch too when you look at the young collection of talent they have right now playing in the NHL, and those prospects who are on the come, not to mention still have some draft picks to use over the next couple of years.
The NBA's got a hole that's obvious in Seattle. It's an obvious market they should be in. Is there any obvious market that the NHL should be in, or are they pretty well covered here? I mean, there are bigger cities that they're not in, like Houston and stuff like that, but is there any like hockey-ish market that to you is like, yeah, they should probably be there?
Kansas City probably comes to mind as a good hockey market. It's got a rich history of minor league hockey. I think Portland would be another city that would fit in the NHL model. But you hit the nail on the head. I mean, Houston is the third largest city in the United States. You have an aging building, but interested ownership. I think that's the market that probably would fit best on the National Hockey League, but I am by no means an expert on that aspect of expansion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes it's just money, right?
The owner of the Houston Rockets, Tillman Fertitta, who made his money in casinos and also one of the biggest restaurant groups in the world, I believe has accepted an ambassador position in the new administration.
Oh, really? I missed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you're going to have the Jets owner, Woody Johnson. You're going to have Fertitta, the Rockets owner.
And Herschel Walker.
Is Herschel an ambassador as well? Okay. All right. Lawrence, moving on and back home here to the Vancouver Canucks. Much has happened in the last couple of weeks. We've learned or gotten further detail that, look, JT Miller runs a hot room. He's emotional. He gets on some teammates, and Elias Pettersson doesn't always appreciate that. How can the Vancouver Canucks go about fixing that, get these guys to get along, get on the same page, and coexist harmoniously together?
Well, I have always said, and I said it to you gentlemen in various forums, but the inmates don't run the asylum. And what I would do if I were in charge, which I am not, is I would bring both principal parties, both players, into my office with the coach, and I would have them air it all out. Hear from one guy, hear from the other. I mean, one guy's your number one center, the other guy's your number two center. One guy's 26, the other guy's 32. Let's have it out, guys. What are your issues? I would hear them out, hear one, hear the other, hear them both squawk at each other, and when they're done, I would say, are you finished? Good. Now go do your blanking job. I'm not trading, or this organization isn't trading either one of you. And your job is to do your job. And the coach's job is to coach you guys. So to me, the notion of if they can't get along, one of them gets traded, that's a terrible, terrible strategy, because the only thing that comes out of that is losing. And if you I learned in this business, if you trade players because you're mad at them, you'll trade yourself right down to the bottom of the league. And another thing that I've said here, everybody's got problems. Always. Everybody's got problems. Two ways to deal with them. Either get rid of them or solve them. It's always better to solve your problem. That's how I would handle the situation.
You had a mix of personalities in your room. It was the Sedins and Kessler, PX, those were all different people. Did it ever get to the point where you guys had to say something, or did they just manage themselves?
Well, 99% of the time they managed themselves, but there were times when Elaine rubbed them the wrong way, and we had some issues, and we brought in the leadership group, which was as many as half a dozen of them, to talk about the state of affairs. And the important thing that we always wanted them to know was that we had their back and that we were supporting them. And as far as getting involved in the squabbles that occurred in the room, that was beneath Mike Gillis and beneath me, quite honestly. Having said that, it never rose to the point where we really had to intercede on any issue. But every team has issues from time to time, and it's better to let them solve their issues than you have to go in and ultimately, arbitrate over it, be the ultimate arbiter. But if it's as bad as, people are saying, I would bring both players in, have a come to Jesus talk with both of them, tell them neither of them are getting traded, go do your job. See you later, bye.
Let me push back for a second. Gilman, on trading one of them leads to losing. Do you not believe that you could go out and execute a good trade for the Vancouver Canucks, dangling one of these most desirable athletes? Why would that not be a possibility?
Well, JT Miller has a no-move clause, correct?
Correct.
So that creates a whole host of issues. So once a player has a no-movement clause, your leverage as a general manager trading that player is significantly weakened. And your ability to get back fair market value for that player is significantly weakened. I watched Cam Robinson's interview with you guys yesterday, and I thought he was absolutely correct. Logic would dictate if you're going to move one of them, you move the 32-year-old who has had a career year the last couple of years, not the 26-year-old who, mercurial star who, tough nut that you're trying to crack. But should you go and try and make that trade, it's like, use Patrick Waugh as an example. Patrick Waugh got fed up with Montreal. There was a blowout there, and there's no way to win a trade like that. Like, very, very, very rarely are you going to win a trade like that. You're giving away a number one center iceman, if you're making it, a 90 to 100 point player whose ceiling has not yet been formed. And that I have a very difficult time believing that you're going to take back more value than you're going to give up. And you'll be chasing to get a player like that for the next 10 years. That's what teams do. Like, you can't find players like this. You got to fix the problem. Like, whatever it is with Pettersson, between Pettersson and JT Miller, between Pettersson and his players, you got to fix the problem.
Okay. Let me push back again, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Well, because I know one of your mentors is Cliff Fletcher, the former Leafs and Flames GM. And I know one of the mantras of Cliff and a lot of managers is, you trade the best player in the deal, you lose the deal.
I believe the expression is he who gets the best player wins the trade.
Okay, there you go. The Ottawa Senators trade Erik Karlsson for a first-round pick that turns into Tim Stützle, Josh Norris, Chris Tierney, and Dylan DeMello. That's center iceman number 1, 2, 3, and a second pair right shot defenseman. The Colorado Avalanche trade Matt Duchene and wind up with Samuel Girard and Bowen Byram, two top four defensemen, and wind up winning a cup. In a cap world, can you not trade a star player for volume and come out ahead?
Well, you can. In those instances, you're looking at two franchises that desperately wanted out of these players for different reasons. And getting rid of them was a win because they created cap space in and of themselves. In and of itself, look, I'm not saying you can't win a trade. Trading a star player, you can, but it is not an easy thing to do, and the odds of the percentage are against you rather than for you. And
your batting percentage goes down.
There's a lot of good fortune that comes in. With you can get back 3 first-round draft picks, but that's income. That's not income. Like, go ask the Boston Bruins about the 3 picks they had, in a row. One of which is now playing for the Vancouver Canucks in Jake DeBrusk. Like, just because you have high picks doesn't mean they're going to turn out.
No, fair enough.
If people have forgotten...
Income, not income. That's a good one, Lawrence.
If people have forgotten, Laurence Gilman is a thesaurus of hockey isms. He can bring out 5 for every hockey
I have never
scenario.
heard IFCOM, though. That is really good.
Let's get into the poll question, Mr. Hockey Executive, because these are, again, sort of just hockey scruples, if you will, being tested here for the Vancouver Canucks. They've got a couple of blue chippers. They've got a lot of ifs, again, to bring up that word, prospects. This goes right, this goes right. This guy's an NHL player. Guys like Kudratsev and Elias Pettersson and others that are tracking nicely, but not blue chips. The blue chippers are Jonathan Lekramaki down on the farm right now and Tom Wielander playing college hockey. One's a right shot defenseman. One is a trigger scorer. Nice players. Wielander's not going to win a Norris. I don't think Lekramaki will ever win a Rocket Richard, but they're that next tier down. Are you willing to part with either of those guys to get a certified National Hockey League top 4 defenseman? Again, it's still not going to be a Norris Trophy winner. A guy like a Bowen Byram is a nice defenseman, but he's not going to win a Norris. Are you willing to pay the price on these prospects for a guy like Bowen Byram, who's probably what he is right now. I'm sure he would beg to differ with that, but what say you?
I'd say I'd have to think about it. I'm not dismissing it offhand. I have been consistent in my analysis of the Vancouver Canucks. I personally think their forward group has a number of variety in it. I like the jam that they have with some of their forwards. They've got interchangeable pieces. Their defense isn't good enough. And, after Quinn Hughes and Philip Hronek, the drop-off is significant. And I think what has befallen them lately is with Philip Hronek going down, you've had to move Tyler Myers up into the top pairing, and you've placed extra pressure on Carson Soucy and Desharnais and the rest of it. And in my estimation, the Vancouver Canucks are not one, but two defensemen away from becoming a legitimate, team or having a legitimate defense core. If you're going to get two top four defensemen, which is hard enough getting one, you're going to be giving up a lot of your draft capital and your prospects. And I'm not saying this might not be the year, but it might not be the year to do that, because it's going to be it's not just one move to fix this problem. It's multiple moves, and it's going to take a lot of capital to accomplish that.
Reportedly, Byram wants to be a bigger piece of any team's pie, if you will. He's stuck behind Power and Dahlin just in terms of being the guy on D. I mean, is he in the same, would you be wary as an executive if you hear scuttlebutt like that, if the agent even communicates that? They got Hronek and Hughes here. He's kind of in a similar situation. Or would you say, we'll cross that bridge. We'll talk to him about his role and we'll deal with that when he arrives?
I don't necessarily buy that that's what Bowen Byram believes in his heart of hearts. I believe it might be a convenient thing to say because he's playing on an absolutely dismal hockey team that has no chance of being successful this year, let alone making the playoffs, and you're a player who's coming off winning a Stanley Cup. I don't have a problem. In any event, I don't have a problem if a guy says, I want to be the man somewhere. But before making that deal, there would be a heart-to-heart with the player to say, let's understand something. We do have Quinn Hughes. We do have Philip Hronek. We're getting you to come in and play alongside them and be a part of them. But if you're telling us that you have to play ahead of, either one or both of them, then you're probably not going to be wearing a blue, green, and white uniform.
Right.
Yeah. Well, insightful as always, Laurence. We have no show. Next Wednesday is Christmas and then New Year's. So we got no shows here coming up on Wednesday for a couple of weeks. Have yourself a happy Hanukkah, a happy New Year, and I look forward to talking to you in 2025.
Thanks, guys. All the best to you and your families for a healthy and happy holiday season and a very, very merry New Year.